Hello, everyone. This is King Narrative. I'm here to talk about a subject that's dear to every American, and specifically you black folks. Is the United States gentrification and financial debt in America. Now, before I elaborate on this subject, we need to understand that America, United States, is in financial ruin, and there's no way to it's going to recover itself. It's no way possible. So I want you to take a look at these two videos.
We have a gorgeous view of Central Park from the entrance foyer. So it's your first impression of this particular building. This particular apartment gives you this glorious view.
The 157 apartment building near Central Park is a new generation skyscraper dotting New York's skyline. Old and new developments like these that are attracting buyers from all over the world, including China. For many years, Canadians were the top foreign buyers of homes in the U.S. But recently, Chinese buyers have surpassed them.
This building, and my expectation, will be probably not 100% owned by people who are going to live in New York on a full-time basis. Though there are going to be a number of people who will live here as their permanent residents, I think the majority of them will be pied-à-terres.
The National Association of Realtors says in the year ending March 2015, buyers from China snapped up $28.6 billion worth of properties in the U.S. Canadians spent $11.2 billion and Indians spent $7.9 billion.
Right now in China market, real estate market is bombed, very bombed. A lot of people, they are selling in China by Manhattan or Long Island.
The average Chinese buyer is spending almost double the average of all foreign buyers and more than triple the amount spent by Americans.
For American home buyer, the average price $255,000, and average price for the foreign buyer, they are $499,000. But for Chinese buyer, their number goes to $830,000 average.
The Chinese have also been pouring money into commercial real estate. According to Real Capital Analytics, in 2016 alone, Chinese firms have bought or are buying 47 U.S. properties worth $9.3 billion, the most of any foreign buyer. As the Chinese economy continues to slow down and the country faces a housing glut, many Chinese investors are continuing to stream into the U.S. Experts say they're not just looking at snapping up trophy properties, but rather assets that will generate the highest return on investment. Tracy Tandon, CCTV, New York.
It's a Saturday afternoon in this Hong Kong hotel, and Chinese investors are enjoying a catered lunch while bidding on properties half a world away. Spending hundreds of thousands of dollars on properties they may never set foot in.
The Chinese are second to the Canadians when it comes to buying property in the United States. And when they buy big. They spent more than any other group and shelled out an average of $591,000 per property. And most of the time when they buy, they pay all cash, preferring big cities like New York and their suburbs. So what's the draw?
We've got friends and folks who live there, so it's sort of keeping up with the Joneses.
For Andrew Chan, a U.S. home is a place to stay on vacation and quite simply a deal. Real estate prices in China are sky high. That means its citizens are cutting checks without stepping foot inside a property on the other side of the planet. Expositions like this one for a development in Florida have become a normal event. This exposition hosted by the O'Neill Group and Noble Apex.
We expect that the U.S. economy can continue to grow. One way or another, the property price will still go up.
In the United States, anyone with cash can buy real estate regardless of citizenship. A very simple contract is all it takes, something new for Chinese citizens.
There's a kind of security to owning property in the U.S. that still doesn't exist in China. It's only recently that the Chinese government expropriated property fairly regularly. I think that means that people who have means are still nervous about their ability to hang on to those means if they invest in China.
35% of reported purchases by Chinese buyers were in California. Why? Because it's closer. As a result, the market has changed. Seasoned LA broker Sally Forster Jones has had to change with it.
I've spent some time in China, just meeting a lot of the potential Chinese buyers to get an understanding of what types of property they like. They are buying anywhere from the lower end in the Los Angeles marketplace, which is somewhere around $1 million, to the high end, 20 million.
Experts say China's restrictions on transferring money out of the country will be relatively easy to navigate. Christine Roman, CNN, New York.
As you can see, the Chinese investment firms are well invested into U.S. markets such as New York, San Francisco, Detroit, Miami, even cities that you wouldn't even think that people would invest in, like Cincinnati. They're investing in Seattle. They're investing in just about everywhere in America. But the importance of Black Americans on this is when we can propose our nation state plan. And how we do this, we just have to be very loud about this. We have to go to every possible avenue to make sure that we get our own state, own nation state, because America's going to have to distribute pieces of land. And this is shown throughout history, which I will go through next. I'll give two pieces of history that have actually happened like this, to where other nations would have to sell off pieces of land to repay a debt. So actually, let's go into that. Now, as you can see here is a map of the Louisiana Purchase, which was owned by France at the time, and the leader was Napoleon Bonaparte. And as you can see that the Louisiana Purchase is territories. It's first south of the Gulf of Mexico to the outer reaches of the United States border to the southern border of Canada. Now, the purpose of this land, for for which Napoleon had it for, was to, that concept that's still here today of colonizing the world, having some type of new world order. But that failed. In 1803, Napoleon Bonaparte had sold it off to the United States due to the uprising in the Caribbean, specifically Haiti, which disrupted Napoleon's whole entire concept of that plan of colonizing the other side of the globe. He just sold it off to the United States. Thomas Jefferson just wanted to buy the port of New Orleans originally, and he wanted to buy around $7.5 million. Napoleon sold the land for the whole entire land for 15 million. And today, on the dollar, with it being inflated by today's currency, would be like $233 million. Thomas Jefferson had sent James Monroe, the Secretary of State of the time, to negotiate this purchase of this piece of land. But at the time, during U.S. Congress, it was an issue of buying pieces of land because it conflicted with the Constitution. It was unconstitutional at the time to purchase properties of land under the state. But just as any other policy that the U.S. does, it went under that and negated everything that the Constitution had to do. Anything that had to do with the Constitution, it negated. So they bought the land in 1803, and that nearly doubled the size of the United States. Now, as you can see here, is a map of Alaska. Alaska was once a part of the Russian Empire, in which it was sold in 1867 for $7.2 million, in which on today's inflation would be roughly around 119, $120 million. And this was done under Andrew Johnson, under his administration. And more apart, the reason why you seen the United States purchasing these parts of the world was for colonialism. It was a part of a colonial strategic plan, in which it was from a guy named Alfred T. Mann. Alfred T. Mann believed that colonializing the world was playing it safe and watching your enemy. And with this purchase, they could watch Russia. Now, Russia has sold off Alaska, which many of this of historic texts won't tell you this, but in most part, they sold off this piece of land to the United States is to repay debt. Now, they said they sold off the land to not be attacked by um, the Brits during the time, but that's not the reason. That Russia was in complete debt during this time, and they had to repay a debt. They had borrowed 15 million pounds during that time from Rothschild, and they had to repay that debt, that war debt, just like how France had to repay war debt. This is why you've seen France uh, sell the Louisiana Purchase. Now, many of you may be wondering, what does this exactly have to do with the United States? After giving a brief history, financial history of these purchases of the United States from various countries. This has to do with United States' current debt hole. China has a $1.3 trillion debt for the US to pay, which they're not going to pay. Japan has $1.1 trillion, which the United States isn't going to pay. Other countries are $3.8 trillion, which the United States isn't going to pay. In total, the United States debt ceiling is at 19.4 trillion. Now, by the time I drop out this video, it may be even more, maybe 20 million by the time I drop out the video. But the point is, the United States has to pay off some debts. If they don't pay off debts, they're getting pieces of land taken. And this is why you see many Chinese investors investing into these cities, because they know the United States isn't going to pay off their debt. Now, as for Black Americans, what does this have to do with us? This means that we're going to get our reparations. Now, many of you have this empathetic attitude of us not getting anything out of the order, which we will. We will get something out of it. And I'm showing you the solution right here. That's why I say invest into this pieces of land. And I'll go more in depth in what's been going on down south and the reasons why we need to go as a whole back down south. Because Midwest, West Coast, East Coast, we're done. Especially if you're on the West Coast or East Coast, you're done. Many of these liberal policies that's been put in place are advocates of sanctuary cities, which goes against our interests. Trust and believe that we will get our reparations. Trust and believe. We have a plan. This plan is over 100 years old. And there's constantly been people going to the UN about how Black Americans need to be repaid for slavery. And we're getting closer and closer to getting that. And this is news that's going unheard. I never hear any of you guys on YouTube report it. Never hear the mainstream media report it. But it's true. This is a constant effort by people with, a very, very reluctant attitude to not get anything out of the order. We will get reparations. Trust and believe. King Narrative out.